What's going on, everyone? This is Dan French. I'm your go-to real estate expert out here in Las Vegas. This is the Real Estate Channel Network. Thank you for making me part of your day. Today, we're going to talk about my predictions on the housing market in 2026 and where I think the housing market is heading into the future, not just in Las Vegas, but nationally. And so a lot of these gurus, a lot of these people out there, economists, feel that the economy was going to crash or the housing market was going to crash. I think they started saying this back in 23. They said it in 24. They even said it in 2025. And now what are they saying about 2026? Are they saying it's going to crash? I started to see some videos out there that there's a possible crash happening. I think a lot of it is contributed to why this is happening is because there's a housing crisis where mortgage rates are higher. You have a big standoff right now. And the big standoff is between buyers and sellers. And I call it the great standoff. A lot of people are predicting the big boom when rates come down, saying that there's going to be a huge influx. And there may be of people coming in. But I call this, what we're going through right now and what we've seen over the last few years, is the great standoff. Because when you look at it, you have buyers that are stepping aside, have not really wanted to pursue buying in some ways. Rates were higher. They're more picky. And so when you look at sellers had low rates. A lot of them had a ton of equity. They could either refinance. They didn't have to move. So only if the right opportunity came, they would move. But let's go back to why I feel that maybe some of these numbers and this data supports that our housing market may get better, but not a crash. We're going to talk about why I think there's not going to be a crash in 2026. So to go through a crash, there's certain stages. One of them being home prices. And everybody, even back when back in 21, 2022, everybody was saying the market's going to crash, right? Prices are going up too high. Supply and demand, right? There was low supply, high demand. And I feel that when you look at where the data was at, the charts and the numbers that I saw, it wasn't going to crash. Matter of fact, I told everybody back then it was going to sustain. Prices were going to sustain themselves, may even go higher. And if you look back, 2022, that's exactly what's happened. When you look at what prices are doing, prices would have to show up here first, showing that we have a huge problem or decline in home prices for crashes to happen. Prices have flattened in 2025. They really moved sideways. They didn't do anything different. They actually, ticked up in some ways a bit in certain regions of the country, but a lot of ways it stayed the same or it didn't really move that much. In some areas it did tick higher, but if there was a crash, it would happen very, very quick, very violent, very sharp situation with crashes. So when you look at stage 2, right? We didn't see any prices crashing in 25. So why would that happen in 2026? Especially with the data that we see is very consistent heading into this year of the last few years. Now, sales absolutely fell. And I think a lot of people are questioning, well, could that be the reason for this crash? Because, sales have declined. And if we continue to see this, the housing market's going to suffer. Well, it's still sustainable. And I think we talked about that word sustainability. Home mortgage price or mortgage rates actually fell to 6%. Fewer people did move and fewer homes did change hands. But fewer sales does not necessarily mean a crash is going to happen. It just means that buyers step back. Sellers have not panicked. And without panic selling, prices don't collapse. So low sales just means hesitation, not desperation. Okay? So that's another reason why I feel the housing market has not shown data or provided proof that going into 2026, we're in line for a crash. Another thing you look at, inventory never surged. So every real estate housing crash in history had one thing in common: too many homes for sale. Now, we did have a lot of homes for sale. The inventory was up through December of 2025, but it never surged at a very quick, alarming rate. The market, it was never flooded with homes. It stayed historically, I would say, tight, but it never flooded. And so you still see buyers coming in. From my buyer's perspective, I've had quite a few people coming from out of state. I've had some people downsizing, upsizing, or just changing altogether. They want a newer home or a different, maybe an investment property. There's been a lot of different reasons why people buy. Has it had the same pace as 2022? No, it has not. But it's okay. They never surged. The market was never flooded, and it did stay tight. But without excess supply, I don't see a crash happening in the near future. So no supply surge does not mean a collapse. They did stabilize. Now, when people look at mortgage rates, they say, well, mortgage rates really are the key factor. They absolutely are for a lot of ways. You know, extending money, getting money cheaper, having payments. You know, when you talk about payments, most people don't negotiate. They do some ways, but when they're buying a house, they're already all in on buying a house. Most people buy on a big ticket item on payment. They don't buy off of just, hey, you know what? Prices have gone up another $10,000. That doesn't move the needle that much. It's over time for that. But it's about housing affordability, and by late 2025, they stabilized. Not low enough, but stable, right? That means that we still need to see a decline in mortgage rates. I would say getting us down between, you know, the mid fours to high fives. Definitely at 5%, you're going to see a difference in buyer activity. That matters because markets don't crash when conditions stop getting worse. They crash when things spiral out of control without, something unforeseen, something that is out of character. Like when we had the crash in 2008, there was a reason for it, right? So by the December of 2025, the spiral has stopped for mortgage rates. So stability doesn't cause crashes. Shock does, right? People or investor shock. A lot of it is consumer confidence, and we talked about that. Tied that up to inflation. And then you look at the last thing, which is no forced sellers. This is the final nail in the crash narrative because through December of 2025, unemployment stayed low, mortgage delinquencies stayed contained, and foreclosures stayed far below crisis levels. And that leads to me to one thing, which is no forced sellers. There was nobody forcing to sell their home. Even situations that people owned their house, they were strategic about it. I've seen people just not want to go down to a certain price range because they know selling their house and going to another home may not be the same situation. Higher rate, maybe the home's not going to be as good. So the key line is no job loss, no defaults really means no crash. So these are the things that I'm looking at. So housing affordability, housing crisis is going to be something we have to stay looking at through 2026. Is things going to be different? I feel we're going to have somewhat of the same market from 2025 heading into 2026. Slight growth. Rates will relatively be the same, hopefully come down a little bit. But I don't see a huge transition in housing. We are going to see more buyers, especially in the months that people buy, usually the hotter months, right? Heading into summertime. But if you look at this, 2026 doesn't look like 2008. It looks like 2025. Slow, uneven. Yeah, it's a little frustrating. But if you're out there buying or trying to buy, it's still a great opportunity because you can become a homeowner. Nationally, rates are like overall, if you look at from when they started tracking mortgage rates, the average rates over time has been about 8%. So since this tracking has been started, we are lower on average, even though prices are still high and mortgage rates are higher than what we've seen. Hopefully, housing affordability will get a little bit better heading into 2026. You'll see an uptick in buyers. If you guys have any questions regarding anything real estate related, financing. I'm your go to realtor out here in Las Vegas. My name is Dan French. I'm with Signature Real Estate. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys at the next one because I'm out of here.